What's up, boxing fans? This is TBE Boxing, back at you again. All right, so today's topic: Canelo Alvarez versus Billy Joe Saunders, the TBE Boxing breakdown and post-fight analysis. So let's chop it up. All right, so great fights last night on the zone card. There's a couple of good fights on that card. Okay, the Takayama fight. Uh, was a very good fight, even though that fight was stopped. Probably a little bit prematurely, I would think. But, it is what it is. Takayama put up a great fight for the whole, for as long as it lasted. But ultimately, he took a lot of punishment and the referee stopped the fight. A lot of people thought the fight was stopped prematurely. They probably could have gave Takayama another round or so. I mean, the fight was almost over, so that fight was probably a little bit prematurely stopped. But champion was able to pull it out in the end with a stoppage, uh, according to the referee. But the fight that we want to talk about right now is the Billy Joe fight. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, Billy Joe put on a fairly good performance. The fight kind of went more or less as expected. Billy Joe was doing some moving, making Canelo miss at certain points in the fight. Uh, he put on a pretty good performance, but again, he got caught, in the ninth round with a uppercut to the eye socket, and that was the end of the fight. Now, as I said before the fight, in my pre-fight analysis leading up to the fight, I said that Billy Joe Saunders had to come in there and be the best Billy Joe Saunders that he could be, but he had to do it for 12 rounds. Unfortunately for Billy Joe Saunders, he was unable to do that. Okay, he couldn't keep up the defense for the 12 rounds. He got caught with a shot in the eye socket, and that was the end of the fight. He had to end up quitting on his stool, retired on the stool, unable to continue the fight. Uh, Now, I mean, I said prior to this fight that the key factor in this fight, one deciding factor probably in this fight was going to be the fact that Billy Joe Saunders hasn't been very active in his career, and that was going to come back to haunt him in his fight, and it actually did. Uh, which is why he couldn't sustain, the level of his level of performance throughout the whole fight because he hasn't been really been fighting that much, and even though he was making Canelo miss and he was doing pretty good in the fight, he was unable to maintain the level of performance that it required to defeat Canelo. I knew he would be able to do okay in the beginning because he's a skilled fighter, but due to the fact that he's been very inactive in the past couple of years, he was just he just wasn't sharp enough to be able to maintain his level of defense and offense throughout the whole fight, and we saw that. That's what happened basically. Canelo was breaking him down little by little. Some of the punches, even though he was slipping a lot of punches, Canelo was able to land a few punches, and the punches that did start to land were very hard punches from Canelo. And even if the eye socket was broken, even if Canelo didn't break his eye socket, he would have wore Billy Joe down eventually because you can see that in the later rounds, Billy Joe was getting a little he was starting to get touched by Canelo little by little. Okay, he did good for the first couple of rounds, first 4 or 5 rounds, but after that he started getting touched with those, vicious right hand that Canelo was trying to land. Because if you notice, Canelo kept trying to land that uppercut, and you can see that they practiced that shot because uh, Billy Joe have a tendency to dip down after he delivered a shot. Like when you throw a jab and then dip and try to slide away. But he doesn't really dip down in an angle. He just dips down. You know, he doesn't dip down to the left or to the right. He just dips down. And I'm pretty sure that Canelo and his team saw that and decided that, oh, that's where they're gonna try to catch him, and that's exactly what they did. They were able to catch Billy Joe on one of his dip downs, and he dipped down right into the punch. Canelo was coming up with the punch, he was going down, and the two met, and that was that end of the show. He by him dipping down like that, he ran into the punch basically and made it more effective, and that was the end of the show right there. So Billy Joe put up a pretty good performance, but again, like I said, he wasn't able to sustain his performance for the whole 12 rounds because he's just not a busy enough fighter, hasn't been in the ring enough, and wasn't sharp enough. If he wasn't so, I'm pretty sure his ring rust played a part in there. If he would been a more busy fighter and been fighting more over the years, he'd have been more prepared, for Canelo, and he would have did better in this fight. He probably could have won the fight based on what I saw so far. I mean, the way he was outboxing Canelo. But like I said, the important thing is that it's one thing to be able to perform at a certain level, but to be able to sustain that performance over a 12 round fight is very difficult. And I said that he had to box almost as good as Mayweather to be able to defeat Canelo. And, he wasn't able to really do that in terms of maintaining and sustaining his performance. I mean, he was able to make Canelo miss, but he didn't make Canelo pay when Canelo missed, which is something Mayweather was able to do. He was able to make Canelo miss and then make Canelo pay. So every time Canelo, attempted to mount an offense against Mayweather, Mayweather made him pay for it. Anything that he wanted to get, Mayweather made him pay. Billy Joe wasn't able to do that. He was able to make Canelo miss, and he was able to land some shots on Canelo, but he wasn't able to sustain it, and he wasn't able to make Canelo pay when Canelo missed. The end, came, and it would have came eventually. Whether it was that round or a couple of rounds later, I think he would have get stopped by Canelo either way, due to the fact that he just wasn't in condition. I don't think to be able to go the whole 12 rounds and to be, in great defensive position and to maintain that position throughout the whole fight. And we saw he got caught with a shot. Okay, Mayweather was able to do that with the whole fight without getting caught with any good shots like what we saw Canelo caught Billy Joe with. Even though it wasn't, Canelo didn't really touch Billy Joe very much, but when he did touch him, he was, he touched him. He touched him hard. So at the end of the day, this fight more or less ended the way most people thought it would have ended, with a stoppage. And Billy Joe came in there. He talked a good talk before the fight, but talk is cheap, and we all saw that, and we all saw the fact that even though Billy Joe was doing great for the first couple of rounds in the fight, as the fight wore on, he started getting touched more and more until finally, he got caught with that uppercut to the eye, and that was the end of the fight. Great performance, actually, by Canelo. The way he was able to end the fight, and Billy Joe put up a good fight, but like I said, he was unable to sustain it. So, but it was a pretty good performance by Billy Joe. He was making Canelo miss. He was doing some good things in there, but uh, he wasn't able to capitalize because at the end of the day, he wasn't able to make Canelo to keep Canelo off of him. Canelo kept stalking him the whole fight, and even though he was tucking Canelo with the jab here and there, Canelo was able to walk through it. And when he did throw a good left hand, you know, some of them landed. But the problem with Billy Joe's shots was that he wasn't sitting down on his punches. He was punching and moving, and he was, punching. A lot of his punches was from out of range. Really, he was a little bit out of range to be able to land a good, solid shot. He didn't take the fight to Canelo. He wasn't able to push Canelo back. He was touching Canelo, but he was touching him on the move while he was moving back or moving side to side. But so he wasn't able to force Canelo to take a backward step in the fight. And when he was doing mostly defensive punches as opposed to offensive punches. He was punching to keep Canelo off of him, not punching to take Canelo out. But it was a pretty good performance by Billy Joe. It wasn't the best performance in the world, but it wasn't the worst. So we saw that Canelo is vulnerable to somebody that can stick and move and who's athletic in there and have lateral movement. So somebody else that could do the same thing in terms of lateral movement and defense and able to fire back at Canelo when Canelo misses, like the way Mayweather did. We should be able to beat Canelo. And there's a few fighters out there that could probably do that. Maybe Andre could probably do that. Maybe Jamal, excuse me, choking on my smoothie. Maybe Jamal Charlo could do it. I don't know. But Billy Joe was just, was unable to sustain the effort. Like I said, and for the most part, the reason why he wasn't able to sustain the effort is because he has been very busy as a fighter. And so, even though he started off great, and he was unable to maintain. Okay, and due to that fact right there, he ended up losing the fight eventually when he got touched by Canelo. He couldn't maintain the defense for the whole 12 rounds. A lot of punches that he was landing, Canelo didn't really face Canelo. Canelo just mostly walked through his punches. I mean, basically, it looked to me like Mayweather was able to land harder shots on Canelo than Billy Joe did, even though they're middleweights. It looked like well, basically, I think that Mayweather's punch was a lot sharper than Billy Joe's punches, and when Mayweather punched, he wasn't punching to keep Canelo off of him. He was punching. He was doing offensive punches in the sense that he was trying to get to Canelo. He was going after Canelo. Billy Joe was trying to keep Canelo off of him. It's a whole different process. Okay, so Billy Joe was fighting more defensively than Mayweather was. Mayweather was much more offensive in his approach to the Canelo fight than Billy Joe was. So at the end of the day, good defense is not enough against Canelo. You have to be able to mount an offense while you're being defensive. And Billy Joe was not able to, do that as well as effectively as he's supposed to in order to win this fight. And so we see that he got caught on the defensive end because he got touched, and also that a lot of his offensive output was mostly just to keep Canelo off of him as opposed to trying to take Canelo out. Nonetheless, it was an interesting fight. Uh, you know, Billy Joe did it as good as he could for as long as it lasted. But again, lack of activity was the main thing for Billy Joe in this fight. I think if Billy Joe had been a more active fighter and been fighting more fights in the last couple of years, he would have put up a better fight against Canelo and could possibly have beat Canelo. But again, his lack of activity, his lack of any real good quality fights against quality opponents, exposed him in this fight, and he was just wasn't able to continue at that level, that a high performance level that was required to beat a guy like Canelo, you know. So the rest is history. Now, uh, I don't know how bad the injury is, but they're saying that he broke his orbital bone. So it is a serious injury. And, Billy Joe was able to continue, quit on the stool. The corner stopped the fight. Uh, it was a devastating punch, actually. When they showed it in slow motion, you can see that, wow, it was a vicious uppercut to the eye. I mean, Billy Joe, put on a good face on it by acting like it didn't hurt him, but uh, when he got back to his corner, you could see he was in a lot of pain, and his eye was closed almost immediately. At the end of the day, it was a good performance, by Billy Joe for as long as it lasted. Uh, you know, uh, he made Canelo look vulnerable a lot of times in there, but he just wasn't able to take advantage of Canelo's vulnerability. He just wasn't quick enough on the draw to make Canelo miss, make Canelo pay, and make him pay heavily. He was able to touch Canelo in places, but it didn't seem to bother Canelo too much, and Canelo was never hurt in the fight. Billy Joe's punches, even though he was landing some decent shots, wasn't that very effective because, again, Billy Joe was punching to keep Canelo off of him as opposed to punching to win the fight against Canelo. It was more defensive approach that he was taking in the sense that he was trying to keep Canelo at bay, okay, as opposed to basically taking the fight to Canelo, okay. So it is what it is. I mean, he put up really good performance based on his level of preparedness and his level of activity over the past couple of years, which has been next to none. He's been very inactive. So his level of performance in this fight wasn't bad based on his history, but it wasn't enough. Now, there's a lot of talk about Caleb Plant next because we all know that's for the undisputed, and that's going to be the fight they want to make next. Okay. Uh, Now, whether Caleb Plant is going to be able to do any better, we don't know. Well, he's definitely more active than Billy Joe, and he's probably a sharper puncher than Billy Joe. Uh, you know, uh, Probably will be able to do a little, and he's a more natural super welterweight than Billy Joe. Super middleweight than Billy Joe. So he's naturally a big guy, bigger guy than Billy Joe. So he should be a little stronger, and he should be able to land some good punches in the Canelo fight. But we don't know how if what kind of shot he can take. Those body punches starting to bother Billy Joe as the fight went on. The ones that did land, it didn't land a lot, but the ones that did land gave him a lot of trouble. You could see that he was, uh, some of those shots had him buckling, to the body. That was, was vicious body shots, and you could tell he felt those shots from Canelo. Whether Caleb Plant can withstand a lot of those shots, I don't know. But we did see some entertainment in the post-fight conference in that Andrade came in there and asked Canelo when are they going to be able to get together, and he was pretty polite at first, but then Canelo told him to get out of here, and then Billy Joe's father came up there and started yelling and screaming, and they ended up showing showing Andre father the door. But the interaction between them, was revealing in the sense that Canelo said that Billy Joe was a horrible fighter, that he hasn't fought anybody. That's basically what he was saying. And Andre was saying, "Hey, old man, if that's the case, then let's get it on. Then come and beat me if I'm a horrible fighter." So yeah, I don't understand that kind of argument that these fighters be making. They say another fighter is horrible, he can't fight, he hasn't fought nobody. Then go there and beat him then. If a fighter hasn't fought nobody and he's a horrible fighter, then why are you not taking him on and beating him? Take his title from him then. I just don't understand that line of reasoning from Canelo. He kept saying you're a horrible fighter. You're not fighting nobody. Of course he's not fighting nobody because people like you don't want to fight him. Okay, you're ducking him for years now. Okay, but you're saying he's a horrible fighter. If he's a horrible fighter, why are you ducking him? I don't get that. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. So basically, all that showed you was that Canelo was definitely ducking Andre. He confirmed that by what he said. Okay, that he's never going to get a shot. He said basically, he's never going to fight Andrade. So there it is. He confirmed the fact that he's ducking Andrade by saying that Andrade was never going to get a fight with him. But yet still he's saying that Andrade is a horrible fighter. So why would you want to take on a horrible fighter and expose him for what he is if you thought he was a horrible fighter? So I'm not buying that by Canelo. I think he's afraid of taking on a guy like Andrade. And I think he's ducking Andrade, and that exchange between them just kind of basically proved that he's ducking Andrade. Why would you call him a horrible fighter, say he hasn't fought nobody, but then you don't want to fight him, and say you're never going to fight him? Why not? Take him out of there. He's undefeated. He's got a middleweight belt. Everybody's saying he's one of the best fighters out there. Fight him and take it out. Take him out. But as we see, Canelo wants no part of him. Now the thing I think that would be interesting, is hold on for 1 minute. I gotta check something. Now I'm on the, I'm thinking that now that Canelo has 3 of the belts, he does have the WBO belt. I believe he had one of the belts. He has the WBO belt. So that would mean that Canelo, Billy Andrade should be able to, call out, move up to 168 pounds and fight Canelo for his belt, for the WBO version of the belt, because Andrade had a WBO version of the belt, so he should be able to move up to 168 pounds and fight Canelo and demand a shot at Canelo version of the WBO belt at 168 pounds, and Canelo should have to fight him. So I don't see why Billy Joe is even going to his press conference and calling. Well, I know why he's doing it. He's supposed to do that. But why not just challenge Canelo for the WBO title at 168 pounds? He can do that. He got the 160 pound WBO belt. He should be able to move up just like Crawford did from 140 pounds to 147 and demanded a fight with, with the champion at 147 pounds, who had the WBO belt, and he was able to get that fight. So Billy Joe, Andrade should be able to do the same thing with Canelo. Now that Canelo has the three belts, I believe he has the WBO, the WBC, and the WBA belts. So that would be a way for Andrade to approach the fight with a fight with Canelo. He should be able to fight for that belt. So instead of asking for Canelo for the fight, he should just make the fight, move up and make and demand the mandatory fight with Canelo for the WBO strap. So that's the way I would approach it. If Canelo don't want to, it looks like Canelo is never going to fight him voluntarily. But yeah, so you know, uh, Andrade, came in there and kind of spoiled. Canelo got a little bit upset. He got more upset when at Canelo's father. At Andrade's father, because Andrade's father started yelling and screaming. And then Canelo said, "Get the fuck out of here." And then uh, Billy Joe got upset because of the way Canelo was talking to his father. He called Canelo a bitch, and so it kind of deteriorated from there. But the call out started off respectfully at first. He congratulated Canelo and said he was a fan and that when can they fight next? And so Canelo kept saying, "Oh, you're a horrible fighter." So I'm not really feeling the way Canelo was responding to that call out. You know, uh, I think that based on what I saw, I think he's ducking Andrade, and he's been ducking him for quite a while now. And that just that little interaction between them just confirmed that to me. Uh, I mean, at the end of the day, this fight with Billy Joe Saunders was kind of anticlimactic. It ended more or less like most people expected it with a Canelo stoppage. Whether it's vulcanized socket or whatever, it was a stoppage. Stoppage is a stoppage. The fight ended the way more or less it was expected to end, with Billy Joe losing the fight. All this talk about gypsy magic and coming there to win and not caring about the money and this, that, and that, that Billy Joe was talking. He was all bravado. I knew it was all bravado. When I saw him doing all of that stuff, because I realized, at the end of the day, we gotta look at the cold hard facts, and you gotta look at the numbers, and the numbers just didn't support a win by Billy Joe. He had, as he showed you in this fight, and I said it, and we talked about this in the beginning, in the pre-fight analysis, the pre-fight, we saw that Billy Joe does have the necessary skills to be able to, beat a guy like Canelo. But in order for him to do that, he'd have to come 100% switched on, and you'd have to be able to maintain that switch on for the whole fight, and he just wasn't able to do it. Okay, and the reason for that again is because of his lack of inactivity. Like I said in this fight, that was going to be a major factor, and it was a major factor. Okay, he just was unable to sustain a level of performance that he required to be able to defeat Canelo. Okay, he could rise to that level of performance, but sustaining it for 12 rounds is where the rubber meets the road. Okay, and that's where he was. He came short. He was unable to sustain his performance for a full 12 rounds. Okay, he was able to maintain his concentration at his level of performance against Canelo for 12 rounds, like Mayweather did. Okay, and so he came up short, and that was the reason why. Okay, and like I said, a major contributing factor to that is due to the fact that he's been so inactive in the past couple of years. I haven't really fighting anybody, and anybody at all. And when he did fight, someone. He wasn't fighting anybody in the top level, you know, fighters out there. You know, the Martin Murrays and people like that. So he wasn't fighting anybody, you know, at the top in the elite fighters to sharpen himself. You know, iron sharpens iron, and he wasn't fighting anybody that was able to, you know, sharpen his skills. And we saw the result of that. You know, he got caught. You know, so yeah. And like I said, you know, leading up to that, he did a great. You know, he was trying to do the whole Lemieux thing, where you know he was outboxing Canelo. But you know, outboxing Canelo and outboxing Lemieux is two different things. Canelo is a pretty good boxer himself, and even though he didn't look as good in this fight for the first part of the fight, you know, we saw that towards the end of the fight, he started coming on and started touching uh, Billy Joe. Canelo was basically loading up a lot of his shots, trying to end it with you know with the body shots, and those shots, you know, most of them missed, but the ones that did land was you know was thunderous punching, and we saw that the one that did land on Billy Joe's eye socket ended the fight, one punch. Okay, so you know Canelo was able to he carried out his strategy very well. I'm pretty sure this is the way they kind of you know started the fight going. That they would be able to hurt Billy Joe to the body and slow him down, which he was starting to slow him down. Billy Joe had a good poker face though, but some of those body shots I thought you know really hurt him very bad. And if he didn't get touched in the eye socket, like I said, he would have been, you know, he would have gotten stopped regardless. You know, I think those body shots would have broke him down eventually, and then Canelo probably would have stopped him. So whether it's by the eye socket or by you know attrition later on, he would have. Yeah, I think he would have been stopped. I don't think the fight would have went the distance regardless. I don't think that Billy Joe was in the shape required to be able to go the distance against a guy like Canelo and you know and win. So we all saw how it played out. Okay, Billy Joe did his best, but it wasn't enough. And I'm thinking that in a fight against Caleb Plant, it's probably going to be the same thing. So at the end of the day, he's just going to be maybe a little better version of Billy Joe. So at the end of the day, I'm thinking that you know Canelo, unless somebody like he goes in there again. I mean, I guess Billy Andrade, Boo Boo Andrade, probably the only guy out there that is going to give Canelo any real trouble. Okay, I don't think Charlo will be able to beat uh, Canelo at this point. He definitely doesn't have the quick feet of a Canelo of Billy Joe or Mayweather. So a fight between Charlo, Jamal, that is, and and between Jamal and Canelo would be a fight where I think it would be a technical uh, fight to a certain degree, but I'm thinking that Canelo would be able to outbox a Charlo. Okay, I'm thinking he probably outbox Charlo. Uh, but I could be wrong in that assessment. But uh, I think he had better defense than Charlo. That is Canelo. Okay, and I think in a fight between Charlo and Jamal Charlo and Canelo, I'm thinking that the defense would make a big difference in that fight. Canelo's defense and his offense, which is pretty impressive. I think he would probably outpoint Charlo in a decision, and he would do it by outboxing him like he did. What's his name? The other fighter that he fought recently. His name can't come to me right now, but I think he technically maybe technically slightly a better fighter than Charlo. And again, I'm thinking the reason for that again is because he's been fighting a lot more. He's been a lot busier than Charlo, and he's fighting better competition than Charlo. You know, so Charlo hasn't really been fighting anybody lately. He's more or less kind of like Billy Joe, fighting. Not fighting a lot of fights, and he's not fighting the best competition out there. Okay, so I'm thinking that a fight between Charlo and Canelo will probably edge it out, and he'll probably beat Charlo and beat him. Beat him decisively more than likely. I don't know if he can stop a Charlo, but I think he could beat him on points. It's hard to beat Canelo on points anyway. So it is what it is. Uh, so I guess the next fight for Canelo is going to be Caleb Plant. I mean, that's the only fight that makes sense now for undisputed. So Caleb Plant is the next logical choice in this Canelo run. And I don't know if Canelo, if Plant is going to be any different than Billy Joe in the sense that, I mean, Plant is not exactly a heavy puncher himself. I think Canelo is a heavier puncher than Plant. And, Canelo has the skills to be able to touch Plant if even though Plant is a slick boxer and a good defense, I think that Canelo is a good enough boxer, good enough on defense to be able to touch Plant. And I think when he touches Plant, it's going to be a problem for Plant. Okay, I think the power of a Canelo is going to give Plant problems. It's like he gave Billy Joe problems. And I think that, the fight will probably more or less, end up around the same way. He probably could stop Caleb Plant. But you never know. I mean, like I said, Caleb Plant's a much sharper puncher than Billy Joe. Caleb Plant has been busy than Billy Joe. Okay, he's been more active as a fighter, and he should be sharper all the way around. So it might be a difficult fight for Canelo. It might be more difficult than Billy Joe was. And we're going to end up seeing the same results or something close to the same results in a fight with Caleb Plant and Canelo Alvarez. But at the end of the day, we got to congratulate Canelo on his performance. Great performance by Canelo. He was able to stop Billy Joe with one shot. Billy Joe put up a pretty decent fight, but like I said again, he wasn't in shape and hasn't been fighting the competition that it requires to be able to maintain his level of performance that he started out with in the fight. In the later rounds, and he basically had to retire on the stool due to injury because Canelo was able to pierce his defense and hurt him with a vicious uppercut to the eye that ended up stopping the fight in its tracks. So kudos to both guys. They did their best. But in this case, Billy Joe Saunders' best just wasn't good enough. And, Canelo's performance, while not the best of his career, it was good enough to be able to stop Billy Joe in the ninth round. And it is what it is. So the train moves on. The Canelo train moves on. Billy Joe, who knows what's going to happen with him if he's going to retire at this point. I mean, what else is there for him in the super middleweight division? I mean, Canelo has all the belts. He will eventually. And, I don't really see Billy Joe getting a title shot anytime soon. I mean, who's he going to fight? I mean, there's nobody to fight. Canelo, he has to go back to Canelo, but he has to go back on that line. Once Canelo become undisputed, then, Billy Joe is going to be almost at the end of the line. You have to go back behind everybody else in that division. And, I mean, I don't know if he has the Billy Joe has the wherewithal to want to be able to go back, heal from that injury, come back again, work his way back up to the top, and then fight Canelo again. I just don't see that happening. I think that probably this is the end of it for Billy Joe. He'll more likely retire for at this point, I would think. But he claims he's a gypsy and he's a fighting man, so maybe he won't retire. Maybe he'll continue to fight on. But if he's going to continue his career, he has to be more busy than he has been, and but I mean, again, who is he going to fight? I mean, he could come down and fight Andrade for the middleweight title. That would be something, but I don't know how appealing that fight would be at this point. So it looks like Billy Joe, has some decisions to make at this point in his career. Okay, I mean, he's not getting any younger right now, so he has some choices to make about how he's going to move forward in boxing, if he's going to move forward. Okay, I mean, he got a decent payday, but it wasn't the best payday in the world for this fight, so it's not like he cashed out. I don't know what his final pay is going to be, maybe about $3-4 million. I don't know if that's a lot of money, but I mean, it's better than nothing, so it is what it is. But he has a lot of decisions to make about whether or not, he wants to continue fighting at this point, based on the injury that he received, and, how long it's going to take for him to recover, and, where he's going to go from here. If he's going to stay at super middleweight, move up or move down. I mean, it's conceivable that he can move down to middleweight, move up, to light heavyweight, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But what can you say? In this situation, he gave it his best. His best wasn't good enough. And, Canelo was the better man last night, and the results speak for themselves. So, again, the Canelo train moves on, okay? Never successful defense of his unified belt. Added one more belt to the bunch right now, and has one more fight to become undisputed against Caleb Plant. Okay, so it is what it is. Now, if Andrade wants to fight Canelo, he's going to have to move up, because I don't think Canelo's going to move down. And like I said, he does have an in for a fight with Canelo by, he can move up and challenge Canelo for the WBO belt that Canelo has. And Canelo would have to fight him. So there's an in for Billy Joe. So I don't know what the problem is. I'm pretty sure that he could do that, move up and demand a fight with. If Canelo had the WBO belt, Andrade could just move up to 168 pounds, demand a fight with Canelo, just like Crawford did with Jeff Horn when he moved up from 104 to 147 pounds. And you can demand a fight with Canelo at 168 pounds, and Canelo would have to fight him. So I don't see what the problem is. Why, there's no need for him to go through any drama. He doesn't have to ask Canelo for the fight. He can demand the fight at 168 pounds for the WBO belt. So I don't see, I see Canelo saying that he's never going to fight Andrade because Andrade is a terrible fighter. He said Andrade is a terrible fighter. You're a terrible fighter. You haven't fought nobody. I don't understand that kind of thinking. If the guy is a terrible fighter, he hasn't fought nobody, then go and take his belt. If I thought somebody was a terrible fighter and he wasn't fighting anybody and he was weak as a champion, I wouldn't even hesitate to take his belt. I would just go and take it. You know what I'm saying? So I don't understand that kind of reasoning. You're a terrible fighter, I'm never going to fight you. What? If I'm a terrible fighter, come and take my belt. Okay? Take it. What's the problem? I'm a terrible. You say I'm a terrible fighter. Well, come and take the belt then. Collect the belt. So when I hear people talking about another fighter, terrible fighter, I'm never going to fight you. I'm right away. I'm suspect. I get suspect. That fighter becomes a suspect to me because if the other fighter is so as bad as you claim, why wouldn't you want? Why are you saying you're never going to fight him? What? It's easy money and another belt collected added to your other belt, all your belts you've collected. So why not go and take that belt away from Andrade if you feel he's a terrible fighter and he hasn't fought nobody? So I'm not buying that nonsense from Canelo. I think he's just ducking Andrade, and he basically confirmed that by saying that he's never going to fight Andrade. Okay, and I think he's just confirming that he's afraid of Andrade. Okay, and he's ducking him. Okay, because again, if a fighter is so bad and he's such a terrible fighter, then go take the belt. Okay, he hasn't fought nobody. Go take the belt. Okay, I mean, I don't get it. It's the same argument that they was giving, that Spence was saying about Crawford. He hasn't fought nobody, and this, that, and the other, all this nonsense. Well, if he hasn't fought nobody, go take the belt. Why are you circling around, going all around the world, fighting everybody but him? And he had a belt, and he's in your way to become undisputed. Go and take that damn belt from Crawford then, if he's not fighting anybody. So I don't buy none of that nonsense. I think it's nonsense. I think it's duck. That's what you call duck talk. Okay, that when you saying somebody ain't no good, but you're not fighting them, then that's duck talk. Okay, you just making up excuses and you ducking. And I think Canelo in this case is really, ducking Andrade. I mean, it's becoming very apparent at this point, and it can't be denied. I mean, it's coming from his own mouth. Okay, it's not like somebody else is saying the stuff that Canelo is saying. He coming out of Canelo's own mouth. So it makes him look like a duck, and I think he is ducking Andrade at the end of the day. And now after this fight with Billy Joe, I see why. Okay, because Canelo would have a whole lot of problems with a guy like Andrade. Okay, he's gonna have a lot of problems with Andrade, and I think he knows that. I think his team knows that, and I think they're gonna do everything in their power to stay away from Andrade. They'll probably fight Charlo before they fight Andrade. Okay, I think the Charlo fight will be an easier fight for Canelo than the Andrade fight at the end of the day. And I think they all know that, and I think that's why he's saying he's never going to fight Andrade because he knows what could possibly happen. Andrade will give him a lot of problems. He had the reach, he had the defense when he switched on, and I think that he would give Canelo, and I think his offense would give Canelo a lot of problems because as we saw in the Billy Joe fight, Billy Joe was able to touch Canelo, but like I said, he was touching Canelo to keep Canelo off of him. He wasn't touching Canelo. He wasn't sitting on his punches. He wasn't going in on Canelo. He wasn't pushing Canelo backwards. He wasn't, sitting down on his punches and he was just punching while he was moving away from Canelo. In other words, he was trying to keep Canelo off of him. So his offense wasn't really that forceful as it could have been. It was more of a defensive offense as opposed to just offensive approach. Okay, when you taking the fight to Canelo, he wouldn't do that. He would fight to keep Canelo from coming forward. Even though none of that stopped Canelo, because Canelo kept coming forward anyway. So that's the difference between I think between the way Andrade would fight Canelo and the way Billy Joe fought Canelo last night. Okay, a lot of Billy Joe punches was timid punches, arm punches, not punches that could really. And when he did throw a good, when he did touch Canelo with a right jab or something and follow up with a left, it was from a slightly out of range because he didn't want to get too close to Canelo for Canelo to counter punch him. So he was punching a lot of his punches and he was throwing his punches out of range, and he was barely touching Canelo. And those punches didn't really have much effect on Canelo because they weren't, he wasn't really sitting on those punches. So that would be the difference, I think, with a guy like Billy Joe and Canelo. I mean, and Andrade. I think Andrade was sitting more on his punches, even though he fights something similar to Canelo to Billy Joe. But I think uh, Andrade will sit in the pocket and trade with Canelo at certain points, and he will be sitting on his punches. And I think he would probably hurt Canelo because he does have a longer reach than Canelo, and I think he can really touch Canelo. If there was exchange in the pocket, and Billy Joe's hand is fast, but I think Andrade probably has a faster, is probably a little bit faster than Billy Joe, and I think he had more pop and more, power in his punches than Billy Joe does. So I think he could, make Canelo really think twice about coming in on him, as where we saw in this fight with Billy Joe and Canelo. Billy Joe was able to keep Canelo off of it. Okay, Canelo just basically walked through a lot of punches, and Billy Joe couldn't really do much about it. So yeah, it will be an interesting fight between Canelo and Andrade. I'm thinking that that would be a tough fight for Canelo, and that for all the people that we have seen so far, and he probably got the best chance against Canelo, even better chance against Canelo than Charlo would have. Okay, and I think that's the reason why Canelo doesn't want to have any part of Andrade under any circumstances. Which is the same reason why we see Charlo ducking Andrade as well, because it's not just Canelo that's ducking Andrade, it's Charlo as well. He's ducking in both Charlos, Jamel and Jamal. I don't think none of them want any part of Billy Joe. So at the end of the day, I mean not Billy Joe, of Andrade. So at the end of the day, I don't know if I think the only way Andrade is going to get a shot at Canelo is to force that mandatory as a WBO moving up to challenge for the title. And I think he needs to do that if he wants that fight with Canelo. That's the only way he's going to get that fight. Okay, and so we'll see if he's gonna, if he's gonna play out that way or not. Okay, if he's gonna, if Canelo would drop the belt rather than fight Andrade, if Andrade was to call him out to force him to fight for the WBO belt at 168 pounds. So we'll see how it all plays out in the end. But yeah, anticlimactic. Good fight as long as it lasted, but the result was never in doubt. I don't think. Again, like Canelo did his thing. Billy Joe wasn't able to sustain his effort, and he ended up getting caught with a vicious uppercut to the eye that ended the fight. He had to retire on the stool, and Canelo marches on with another TKO victory over another opponent. So it is what it is. That's where we are right now. Uh, Hopefully, we'll see another fight in September with Caleb Plant for the undisputed. I mean, after that, I guess I don't know what Canelo's going to do after that. But I think he's going to continue fighting. I don't know if he's going to try to move up to 168 and become undisputed. I mean, 175 and become undisputed there, or he's going to stay at 168 for a middleweight, or if he's going to move down to 160 and try to get the titles there as well. I mean, he should be able to do that. I mean, who has the title there? You have Erislandy Lara, you got Murata, you got Charlo, and you got Andrade. Okay, so we'll see how it all plays out. But I would think that the guys at middleweight, need to fight each other. Really, at the end of the day, just like Canelo did say. I mean, these guys, they're not fighting each other at middleweight. I don't know why. Andrade and Charlo should have had a fight by now. Murata is there. I think he's gonna fight Triple G next. I hear. Uh, and you got Erislandy Lara with a WBO middleweight belt as well. So I mean, there's a lot of fights to be made at middleweight. I mean, I guess Lara could fight Andrade eventually, or maybe the winner of the Murata Triple G fight. But that fight is going to be in December. I'm hearing that's a long way off. So the winner of that fight, if you're going to fight the winner of that fight, you're looking at early 2022 for a fight. So I mean, I know the middleweight division is not doing much right now. These guys need to mix it up. Okay, they all want to fight Canelo, but at the end of the day, they need to fight each other. But again, Andre's been calling out all these guys. Nobody really wants to fight him. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, it was a great fight while it lasted. Canelo pulled it out again, stopped Billy Joe. Now, all the Billy Joe talk is over with now. At the end of the day, he wasn't able to sustain his effort against Canelo, and he got stopped. And, it is what it is. So much for the Gypsy Magic, okay? And I guess we're going to have to see how the Gypsy Magic does in the AJ versus Fury fight. So, it is what it is. But yeah, not a bad fight at the end of the day. Congratulations to both guys for their performances. Congratulations to Canelo for his win. Hopefully, Billy Joe will be able to recover from that injury and continue boxing if that's what he wants to do. If not, then I guess he could retire. But I don't know. He's a gypsy, so we don't know if he's going to retire right now. But I don't really see much in the future for Billy Joe at this point at 100 at 168 pounds. I don't see a path forward for him right now, but who knows? We'll see how it all plays out in the end. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it there for right now. This is TBE Boxing. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Go to tbeboxing.com to get the latest boxing analysis, headlines, and the boxing news. The boxing articles are updated daily on tbeboxing.com. So you're getting fresh boxing news, fresh boxing headlines, fresh boxing analysis. Okay, so go ahead and check it out. This is TBE Boxing. That's all I have for right now. I'm out.